Thanks for attending the meeting tonight. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Benson. Here. Brunick.
Here.
Sarda.
Here.
Hanoff.
Here.
Minor. Mosier. Villanueva.
Present.
Weber.
Here.
Mayor Schramm.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Dave's here.
Dave substitute. City Attorney Den Herder.
Thank you. I don't know if it's you or me, but I did put deodorant on. I don't think it's, I think it's me. It smelled too bad.
I might.
No, we had, the National Honor Society had, they rescheduled due to last week's weather, so we're just a lot of people going around, Ross included. So he'll be here eventually, hopefully. If we need him, we can push an item later to the agenda if we need to have legal counsel on it. Before you have the minutes of our last meeting of February 24th, 2025, what is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on those minutes? Anyone from the public? Roll call. No, excuse me. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Schedule of bills.
Move to pay the bills.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pay the bills. Any discussion on those items? Anyone from the public? Roll call.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Schramm.
Aye. Bills will be paid. Moving on to the city manager's report. Dave, you got something from Amy?
I am going to go through one or two things really quick. I know Kyle's got the bulk of the staff duties tonight, so I'll let him get to that as soon as possible. Some of you may have heard that the General Services Administration notified 164 locations nationally that they're terminating leases in their buildings. 8 of those are in South Dakota. 1 of them is in Yankton. The National Park Service is in that facility. Some of you might remember that we worked with property owners for a couple of years to recruit the NPS to Yankton. They have 12 full-time employees, and those folks have all moved here from out of town. And Amy and I were talking and wondering if it was appropriate, if it's okay if we drafted a letter and had the mayor sign it in support of maintaining that presence at that specific location would be best in Yankton. You got to imagine that out of 164 locations that they're not going to close all of them. There's going to be a few that they end up keeping open. So we're hopeful that Yankton is one of them. And if it's okay with you, we'll prepare that documentation and ask the mayor to sign it. There may be a point later on where we ask consideration of a resolution. Board of Equalization volunteers, think about it for the next meeting, right, Lisa? 3 volunteers we need with an alternate. Last year, Benson, Hanoff, and Johnson served. And there is media information about citywide cleanup all over the place, so I'll forego that announcement at this point. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions of me.
Dave, back to the letter. I'm sure we all want to keep the National River here, but National River office, but might there be a more affordable location for them?
Yeah, and those are the level of detail that we don't understand yet. You know, the lease is one of those real complicated things that's all inclusive, so it's from a square footage standpoint, it can't really be thought of the same as a lot of other commercial lease spaces, because it's, when I say all inclusive, I mean all inclusive coming down to even emptying garbage cans, you know, on a daily basis and things. So that's why that price looks a little different per square foot than in other commercial locations. But when we get that level of detail, you know, we'll find out. The staff there, to our knowledge, still doesn't know what their fate is. So we're just hopeful that they keep a presence in Yankton.
Any objections from the commission that are here about drafting a letter in support? Okay, not seeing any. Okay, I think that's fair to do, Dave. Any other comments for Dave from the commission? Comments or questions? Okay.
I do have a comment.
Yes.
And it's more along what you brought up earlier, the National Honor Society. I just want to congratulate all the National Honor Society candidates and those inductees tonight. My son is one of those that's being inducted tonight, and I feel bad, but I'm here tonight because I'm serving the public. But I do want to say, Liam, I'm very proud of you and all those students that are being inducted tonight in the National Honor Society. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. We had 2 proclamations scheduled for this evening, and due to the National Honor Society reschedule, the Yankton Bucks bowling team was not able to attend because several of the members are being inducted tonight. So we're going to move that to the next meeting. But we do have the National March for Meals Month, and we're fortunate to have some people here in attendance for that. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I'm sure, Chris, if you want to say a few words. And we already did the pictures earlier. We scheduled that ahead of time, so it's so nice outside. We're trying to keep this moving along. I told Kyle he only gets 3 minutes later. Okay. Whereas Meals on Wheels in Yankton, South Dakota provide nutritious meals, both congregate and home delivered, to seniors throughout Yankton, to the Yankton community that help maintain their health and independence, thereby helping to prevent unnecessary falls and hospitalizations, and whereas volunteers for Meals on Wheels in Yankton, South Dakota are the backbone of the program, delivering meals to seniors who are at a significant risk of hunger and isolation with caring concerns and attention to their welfare, and whereas Meals on Wheels in Yankton, South Dakota provide a powerful opportunity for social connection for hundreds of seniors to help combat the negative health effects and economic consequences of loneliness and isolation, and whereas Meals on Wheels in Yankton and their volunteers deserve recognition for the heroic contributions and essential services they provided amid the COVID-19 pandemic, inclement weather, and other emergencies. And whereas the senior population is increasing substantially and action is needed now to support Meals on Wheels through federal, state, and local funding, volunteering, donations, and raising awareness to ensure these vital services can continue to be delivered for years to come. And whereas nationwide, 12 million seniors are still threatened by or experience hunger, a third of seniors feel lonely, and 1 in 3 Meals on Wheels programs has a wait list with seniors waiting on average 3 months for vital meals. And now, therefore, I, Mason Schramm, Mayor of Yankton, do hereby proclaim March as a month of celebrating senior nutrition programs and urge every community member to take this month to honor our senior nutrition programs and the individuals they serve and the volunteers who care for them. We hereby recognize the Older Americans Act Nutrition Program and Meals on Wheels programs for their heroic efforts to help combat senior hunger and isolation in America. So, Chris, I'm sure you have some words for us.
I do. I won't take up all of Kyle's time, though. Well, I might. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the proclamation. It is so important to have this service available in this community. Last year, I told you a story of a gentleman we were able to help that only had a little over $700 a month income and couldn't afford Meals on Wheels, and we took care of that for him, and that's what our upcoming fundraiser is all about. This year, we actually have another one we just added that, get this, makes less than $500 a month, and he can't afford his Meals on Wheels, so we've put him on our free meal program, which, again, that's what this fundraiser does. We do this every year. This is our 11th year. Last year, we had several of the commission members rocking, and we have several again this year. We have Jerry Weber and Mason Schramm representing the commission. Mike Villanueva is representing Yankton Rotary, and Brian Hunoff is representing the City Commission and the Battle of the Hunoffs, because we have about 5 other Hunoffs rocking against each other. I did get some money in for you today, too, from Mark and Patty. We had to split it between all of you, though, so it was like $1.50 each, but no, I'm just kidding. It was a little more than that. Anyway, we're right now we're providing free meals to 39 individuals. 3 of those are at our Tabor location. And it's at a cost of about $3,000 a month. So that this fundraiser, those funds are going to be used for that. Last year, as you know, when I came here, we raised $68,000. I shouldn't say we, because everyone that rocked raised the money. Our commissioners last year raised $4,799. This year, I have all 5 county commissioners rocking too. So I don't know if there could be a little challenge there to, who's going to raise the most. But that's that. And then, of course, like I said, we have the Battle of the Hunoffs, and we have Dan and Jean and Matt and Kelsey and Brian and Chris Hunoff all rocking against each other. So I won't take much more of your time, but I do want to throw a few highlights out there. Last year at this time, we were averaging 75 to 80 Meals on Wheels a day, and now we're averaging 115 per day. And our overall meals per month are going over 4,000 per month. And not only that, our membership's increasing, and we're at an all-time high of 907 members for the year. We're getting awful close to that 1,000 member mark we want to hit. Historically, the last number I could find was in 2007, and it was 833 members. So we've passed our historical data there. A couple other people in the room that are rocking. Jay Graveld in the back is rocking for us. Vicki Swenson and Dawn Hensler, our board members at the center, are also rocking. And if you could, Sarah, tell Jason thank you. Jason Foot's also a board member, and he's rocking this year too. I'll leave you with that, and Kyle can have the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you everyone that's rocking and everyone's here, and make sure you support. It's a great cause. All right, moving on to public appearances. We do have one scheduled public appearance, but is there anyone from the audience that would like to address the commission on something that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing no public movement, just Kyle. We're going to move on to Kyle. He's going to talk to us about the lead service line inventory and the public notice that goes out. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, Commission, Honorable Mayor. I wish I could get through this in 3 minutes. I really do. It's a beautiful night out there. Again, this is talking about the lead and copper rule and some of the revisions that have came out over the recent years. Again, this comes from the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal level. Really what we're looking at is potential health risk. That's really what's coming down from the federal government. We also added into this high risk of service line failures when you look at these lead service lines. Lead-free South Dakota, it's part of an EPA nationwide initiative. When drinking water comes out of a treatment plant, it does not have lead in it. However, if water stays in a lead pipe for a fairly long time, it can actually leach out some of that lead and end up in your faucet. And so that's what we're trying to educate everyone on. Yankton's water mains are free of lead, but we do have some lead service lines out there on the private side yet. Lead and copper rule, kind of pre-lead and copper rule, starting in 1986 is when lead service lines were banned in the United States. Actually, we were one of the later countries to ban lead. Lead and copper rule originally came out in 1991. It's undergone several revisions. That's kind of where we're at today. The rule from 1991 does require an action level of 15 parts per billion. So if we collect samples and we have more than 10% that are 15 parts per billion or higher, we have to take action. That action really works around corrosion control. Again, if you look at our historical data with the samples we have collected, we have a very good anti-corrosion program in place with our water. We've never seen any issues with high lead counts, but again, it always is a potential hazard, and that's what we're talking about. Here in Yankton, every 3 years, we have homeowners collect what we call our first draw sample. And the reason we have the homeowners collect the sample is we want that first draw in the morning when they turn on their faucet after the water is sat all night in that potential, or in that lead service line. The samples come from 15 residents that we know have lead service lines. Last year's samples ranged from 0.1 to 0.57, well below the EP action level of 15. So again, we have a good anti-corrosion program in place. We've got good historical data that shows that we've maintained that in the past. So again, this is talking about that potential that could happen in the future. The 2021 revisions, a lot of this was driven by the Flint, Michigan issue in 2016, if you remember that. Lead service lines create a potential hazard. Again, part of this revision did not change the action limits. So the health limits stayed the same at 15 parts per billion. But what it does require as a community for us to, as a water system, to create a lead service line inventory that'll have to be updated yearly from now going on. As you can imagine, trying to figure out what everybody's service lines is very difficult. Also requires public notice, just notifying anyone that has a lead, galvanized, or an unknown service line. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. In the future, EPA is looking at, in the next revision, of all service lines, lead service lines being replaced by October of 2034. We will be coming forward here in the next year with some recommendations for changes in our ordinance to address that going forward. Lead service lines in Yankton, they're all 50 years older or more. They're failing due to that age and that lead material. When you look at service line failures, you have potential for a lot of damage. Lead service lines fail usually right at the wall, potentially floods your basement, your furnace, your water heater, all those things. We've also seen where they break just outside the basement wall. When you get all that saturation outside the basement wall, it can actually cause the basement wall to collapse. So when you look at the age of this infrastructure, if you have a service line that's lead or galvanized also, you should probably really be looking at a long-term solution to get that replaced. The other side of that too is lead and galvanized service lines are quite old, and there's a really good chance the outside shutoff that's underground won't work. So when you call staff in at 3 o'clock in the morning because your basement's flooding and they can't get on the curb stop, you've got to call a contractor to come in and dig it up. So potentially it could be quite a bit of time before you can get that water shut off. So the potential risk is real there for those lead and galvanized lines. Service line material inventory and public notice. The service lines are required to be verified at 2 locations. The first location is at the residence where it comes in through the wall or through the floor. And the second one is somewhere outside underground. So it's been fairly easy to get, not fairly easy, but we're lucky that we're in the process of doing a water meter replacement project. So we've got pretty good data for those lines coming into the homes. The unknown is going to be anybody that's outside underground. So we'll have a large portion that are considered unknown. The categories for these letters are lead. Again, this will be any lead line that's been verified. Galvanized line requiring replacement. And what that means is any galvanized line that's had a lead service line upstream or downstream from it at any point in time. And the reason for that is galvanized has a large buildup of oxidized material on the inside of the pipe, and it actually accumulates any lead that ever goes through that pipe. And as that starts to slough off over time, as that galvanized pipe degrades, it can cause the same issue as a lead pipe. In Yankton, because we really can't verify if those galvanized lines have ever had a lead line upstream or downstream, pretty much all of our galvanized lines are going to be considered in that category of galvanized requiring replacement. So it'll be treated treated the same as a lead service line and be in that 2034 replacement. We know non-lead, and again, anything that was post-1986 construction will be a copper service line here in Yankton or some form of non-lead. Anything that was pre-1986 is basically going to be considered unknown because we don't know what's underground. So when you look at this, again, all the lead, galvanized requiring replacement, and unknown require public notification. We've got approximately 91 lead service lines that we verified through our water meter replacement program, about 115 galvanized, and approximately about 3,000 that are unknown that are that pre-1986. Donnie's here in the audience, Donnie Robinson. He's been working with our water meter change-out program. We've got over 4,000 meters changed out. If you remember, we had a contractor coming in originally to do the first large portion of them. Now we're at the ones where we're having a little bit harder time getting into homes and things like that, and we're doing that internally with our own staff. As we get in the summer here, we'll get too busy with construction projects and things like that, or outside work, so we won't get a lot done, and then we'll hit it hard again next winter, getting more of those meters in, and continuing to verify those service lines in the home. Anyone that receives a lead or galvanized public notice, that means we have verified that you have a lead or galvanized line coming into your home. If you have not had your meter changed out, or if you've had your meter changed out in the last 2 years and you do not receive a lead or galvanized letter, but you received the unknown, that means we've confirmed that it's copper coming into the house, but again, we don't know the unknown that's outside, so you get the unknown letter. If you haven't had your meter changed out, of course, you'll get an unknown letter because we won't know in either locations, and anything that's after 1986, of course, you won't get a letter and you can assume it's copper. This picture is just a picture of what the lines look like when they're new. At the very end, I'll have some other pictures for you, but you've got a copper, the orange color, the rigid galvanized, and the far right is a piece of lead where you can see where they scraped on it and shiny. This is just an example of the letter that'll be going out. We hope to get these out either late this week or early next week. We'll probably start with the lead and galvanized letters first, then we'll probably wait about a week, and then send out the unknown letters. When we talk about the responsibility of the service line, it's clear in our city ordinance that it's the owner's responsibility to dig up, repair any curb stop, service line, or any part of that if it's been damaged or requires replacement. So we're not unique to that way, but some cities do own to the curb stop. Yankton is one of several cities where the homeowner owns the entire service line. So it's the owner's responsibility from the main all the way to the home. So if you look at this, you can kind of see the public water main and the meters, what the city owns. Everything else in between that is actually the homeowners. That includes the corporation, the curb stop and all that. Interesting on this is when you look at this, that water main, if you're lucky, it's on your side of the street behind the curb and you don't have to dig out into the street. If you're unlucky, it's on the other side of the street and you have to dig all the way across the street to get to the water main. We've also ran into issues over years where people have built garages onto their house and have extended their garages out over top the service lines, which is going to make replacement more expensive. So you see things like that. This is, again, just kind of a picture that shows the saddle, the corporation, what it would look like. Again, everything would be underground up to the curb stop, then underground, then the shutoff valve, and the meter would all be inside the house. Again, it's the saddle and everything is the private owner's responsibility. The only thing we own is the main and the meter itself. Steps, if you're concerned about the lead, if you get a notification of a lead service line, again, it's a notification of a potential hazard. It's not anything that's ever been verified. Again, we have good historical data that shows that we don't have issues with it, but some things you could do: flush your water out before you drink it, run it for 30 seconds, make sure you get that water turned over and that water that was in the service line flushed out. If you're using it, stay away from warm or hot water. Lead dissolves better in hot water, so you want to stay away from that. Boiling water does not remove lead, so boiling water will not reduce the lead. If you're really concerned, you can look at purchasing bottled water or a filter. Just make sure it's the labeled NSF, NSI 53, so that it does that. And if you have additional concerns, we're not doctors, so always reach out to your healthcare provider if you have additional concerns on that. Like I said, letters are scheduled to go out later this week or next week. If you need more information, don't be afraid to call our water plant number, the 5272. And let's just put an example there. If you know you replaced your copper or replaced your service line back in 2003 and you've got an unknown letter, we can use owner verification for verification that the service line has been replaced. So we would appreciate that. If you want to look at your service line yourself because you didn't receive a letter, there is a website, South Dakota Water Pipes. It does a good job of explaining how to scratch it with a coin. Magnetic, if it's copper, it won't be magnetic, to take a picture. Questions?
Kyle, how many citizens do we think that this will affect in its entirety, all the way down to unknown?
So like I said, we have, right now, if the unknown list is about 3,000, and then another little over 200 with lead and copper. So those will be the ones that are affected.
Okay.
Some of those unknown, we either get clarification in the future that it's not a lead line or that it is lead. And some of those we're just, over time, we're gonna have a really hard time getting that unknown outside verified.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Need to educate the public like on buying a house? Would we have any part in that where it has to be disclosed to the purchaser if they're buying a house that's 50 years old or maybe even older? Maybe a realtor would know that.
I can tell you that if you receive a letter from the city that says you have a lead line or a galvanized line, you would be required to disclose that as material fact in your property disclosure when you go to sell your house.
Okay.
So I've run into this several times, and every time the seller has ultimately ended up replacing the line or paid for a Culligan-type system. Both options were not cheap, right? But it does have to be disclosed, if you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
But with this, with what we're talking about here, like a Culligan system would not be allowed 10 years from now.
Based on what they're saying, the copper line would need to be replaced by 2034 unless that changes in between now and then.
Yeah.
Not the copper line, I mean the lead line,
The
excuse
lead
me.
line.
Yeah.
So that is the next phase of the lead and copper revision that's under review right now. As we all know, things are going on at the federal government. Where that's going to go, I can't say. We're far enough through the lead and copper review that I think that it will stay in there, and that'll be mandated for states. As this gets mandated to the state's the one that actually has to come out and regulate this. So that's who we work with. So I do think we'll see that 2034 replacement schedule.
And so as it stands right now, in 10 years' time, these lead lines are going to have to be replaced, and it's
Yes.
going to be on the private individual who owns it, and it's going to be
Correct.
from the saddle all the way into the house.
Correct. Now, we will work with homeowners when we know we have street projects and things like that, where we know we'll have the street tore up, but it would be a good time, to get in there and do it while the street's tore up to save them some money. We'll work with those. So if we know we have a street project, we'll get into who has lead lines, notify them, and make sure they're aware that this would be the time to do it. So,
Kyle, knowing that for some people this is going to be extremely expensive, do we know of are there any, being that state regulated, any type of help that people can get through the state to help fund replacing these lines, or?
so far there is not, especially on the private side. There's very seldom funding on private property
Okay.
for this. So, and again, where the federal government's at right now, for at least for the next 4 years, I highly doubt there'll be any type of funding available. And when you look at service lines and the difference in costs, depending on where the house is at from the main, we have service lines that are, half a block long to get to the main. The next one's, straight out the curb, water mains on the, so the difference in cost is so different that it's hard to be fair in terms of how they would ever help fund that. So right now, there is not, I really don't see anything in the future.
Okay, thanks, Kyle.
Is there an average cost per foot? And I realize it can vary if you're having to go under concrete and things like that, but is there an average cost per foot? Or yard or meter?
Again, they can range anywhere from, for, $2,000 to $10,000, depending on, again, the one thing I would say is if they've got to do it in the middle of the winter, you wait for it to break in the middle of the winter and they've got a bust frost, it's going to take them longer, it's going to be more. Again, if the water main's behind the curb on your side of the street and it goes straight into the house, easy shot, they can come in and dig that, replace it really quick. If you built the garage over top your service line, the cost can go up quite rapidly. So, I do have a couple other pictures here also. We showed you the first picture, which shows you lead and copper, brand new. This is actually a copper service line. That's hard to tell. You can kind of see there's a threaded fitting where it goes up to the valve. You can also see kind of that greenish tint. When copper oxidizes, it gets kind of a green color. So this is most likely a copper with a flared fitting. Next one. This is galvanized steel. As you can see, it's very rigid coming in. That's one of the reasons why plumbers didn't like galvanized. It's extremely rigid. The other thing I'll point about galvanized here too is if galvanized breaks on you before your valve, you don't have a way to shut it off, you can't just pound it flat. Like copper and lead, grab a couple hammers, pound them flat, you can get the water stopped. You try to do that with galvanized, it crumbles and cracks and breaks, and you can't do it. So it can be very hard to get the water shut off if your valves don't work. Next one. This is kind of lead service line. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see where it kind of bulges, where the fitting goes on. That's what they call a wiped fitting. The other things you'll see when you have lead is they almost always have to be held up like that. They need some type of stabilization. Lead is very flexible. If you don't have something holding it up, it will actually just fall over. Staff, the guys changing water meters before have had that, where they unhook it and the pipe just falls and breaks off. So this is just an example. I put this on here because it's one of the things we're running into. This is somewhere where they tied some plastic into their system. And the reason I put this is that when we locate water lines, we go out and hook to the outside spigot, and we assume there's copper going all the way through the house and through the meter, and then we had a small electrical pulse, and that's what we go outside and trace, so we can trace out your service line. When they add a piece of plastic in there without putting a jumper wire in there, we can't locate that service line anymore. So if they call located and they want us to locate their water service, we won't be able to do it when the plastic is in there like that. So that's about all we have. Unless you have any other questions. Again, we'll be getting the letters out here into this week, beginning of next week, and moving forward with it.
I've got one quick question. This is for residential, commercial, everything, or is it just residential?
It is for everything, but you really, anything over 2 inch, you never saw lead. So it's basically going to be residential. So, if that makes sense.
Any other questions for Kyle from the commission? Thanks, Kyle, for the info and the explanation. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. The transit merchant license for Riverboat Days, notice for the call for the city election, and establishing a public hearing for a on-sale wine retailer's license for Mount Marty on April 9th. All those in favor of approving the consent items as stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion first. I got so wrapped up in Kyle's thing, I forgot. All right, motion for that? Mike?
Sure, so
Okay,
moved.
Mike, and then second. Thank you, Bridget. Now, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, moving on to the old business section of our agenda. Item number 1 is a consideration of memorandum 25-48 regarding ordinance 1096, which is a rezoning from A1 Ag to R2 in the northwest corner side of town. This would be, I can have Dave explain in just a second, but it's essentially for a single-family development, but pertains to a larger area, so we have to take a look at it. Dave, you want to explain before we vote?
Sure. This location is in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is not adjacent to the corporate limits, so the full extent of the subdivision regulations do not apply. What we look at when considering a request like this that we received from owners Steve and Lori Drotzman is conformance with the Long Range Comprehensive Development Plan, which this follows in line with the planned residential build out of that area northwest of town. So it's in compliance with long range plans that we currently have adopted. The other thing that happens is this goes through the planning commission process with 2 ETJ members sitting on the planning commission, and then it goes to the county commission for their consideration, because as you may remember, our ETJ ordinance, anytime there's an amendment, which a rezoning is an amendment, the county commission has to consider it also. It's been through both of those processes. Both of those entities have recommended approval of the proposed request. Staff also recommends approval of the proposed request. And I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
Dave, there was one comment, I believe, in there from adjacent or someone in the area.
Yeah, there's a letter from an owner across the highway to the south who is not opposed to the rezoning. He has just lived in that dwelling his whole life, and he wanted the commission, the public to know, Mr. Mark Hansen, that he has seen, ice dams and high flow events in the creek at that location. and, would strongly discourage anybody from developing in the floodway in that area, which we had a good conversation at the counter and assured him that would not be permitted based on other regulatory influence or impacts, from the floodplain management perspective. And he just wanted the public to know that has been an issue in parts of the area under consideration for the rezoning.
Could I have the commission entertain a motion and a second on this ordinance?
Move to
So
approve.
moved.
We have a motion, a second. Any additional discussion on this item? Anyone from the public? Okay, roll call.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye, motion carries. Item 2 under old business is the consideration of memorandum 25-51, which is recommending that the city commission approve resolution 25-11, stating the minimum bid application fee amounts for a package off-sale liquor license, and also authorizing staff to proceed with one of the proposed timelines shown in the memorandum. Lisa, do you want to give a little discussion background before we do motion second? Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commission. This is the third time around the block, if you want to say so. So this kind of originated back in fall of 2023. We were allowed another package off-sale liquor license due to increase in population. So per state law, this alcohol license is per every 1,500 increase of people. So that gave us an additional license, which would be our 12th. So the first round, we did a sealed bid process. We did a minimum bid of $100,000 and an application fee of $100, and no bids were received. Then in turn, we did a second round later that spring for a minimum bid of $50,000 and a $100 application fee, and no bids were received as well. You may recall between those two, we did update our ordinance, and that kind of clarified that we do have to issue this per sealed bid. That's per South Dakota bid laws we have to follow in turn. So looking at what other cities have done, there's a lot of cities that are growing, such as T, Harrisburg. A lot of those smaller cities are first come, first serve. They're growing so rapidly, they don't really have the huge demand. If somebody comes and says, hey, I want a license, yeah, they do that. So T's license fee is $300. Harrisburg is $500. At the last meeting, we discussed Mitchell had a sealed bid. They were also selling a license. That license came up for sale because somebody did not renew their license. So they were kind of in a different boat than us. They had a minimum bid of $300, and they received 3 bids, which was $51,000, $18,000, $50, and $15,000. So they did award that bid to the highest bidder at $51,000, and I have not heard any issues with that going forward. Sioux Falls is probably the most known for having a lot of these kind of alcohol licenses for sale. I did talk to Laura Cunningham at the Department of Revenue, and she mentioned, she doesn't see a ton of these, but Sioux Falls, they're growing so rapidly. They have a sealed bid process in their ordinances as well, and they have a $500 minimum bid requirement, and they typically receive bids between $13,000 and $20,000. I believe our first round of these bids, we were also looking at Sioux Falls at that time, and they had a couple bids for $100,000. Well, it turns out from Sioux Falls, those higher bidders backed out. So in turns, that $100,000 bid essentially became a alcohol license for $15,000. So that was kind of the situation in that it was just a matter of timing, and that was the case. So this go around, there are several options. We do have to do 2 legal notices, do the bid award, set the date for the public hearing. So there's several options there. bear in mind, those are just options for staff to follow. City Commission also has the option to table this. We could hold on to it. There's nothing stopping with that. We have had a question about why don't we sell this at an auction? Well, per our city ordinance, we cannot do that without an ordinance change. Kind of the same thing with why can't somebody just walk in and pay a fee, you know? That would be against our city ordinance. So if we wanted to change a different method of issuing the license, that would be an ordinance change if it was not done by sealed bid. Are there any questions on my end, or I can provide further details as well?
The minimum statutory bid limit, the minimum bid limit is $300, is that correct?
That's correct, and
Okay.
that's per state law.
And I was told that if we went below that, that it would actually be the finance office that would get in trouble, not the city commission. So just want you guys know.
I did have a question, Lisa. You mentioned that, excuse me, that if it's state law that we have to have a sealed bid process, and so if we did change it, would we not be following state law then?
It's not state law to have the sealed bid process. That is that $300 selling minimum requirement.
Okay.
So we do not have to do it via a sealed bid. A lot of the larger municipalities do offer that option, though.
We established a procedure in our ordinances that mirrors state bidding for like public improvement projects. That was a method that was successfully used by Sioux Falls, and we just latched onto that as a way to try to develop a competitive bidding procedure that was tried and true. We don't have to do it that way, but then it comes down to how do you decide the winner? And the statutes are not particularly clear, and we don't like the idea of first come, first served.
Right.
Unless the fee is high enough, but you know that would be a significant change from what we've been looking at.
Okay, thanks.
So the question that I've got, or the statement that I have, is I was the one that had asked if we could do an online auction. And so that was a question that I had because someone had come to me and had asked that, and they had bought property through, I believe, the National Park System. And they had purchased property, and the way that system worked is there was a bid closing, so it was open for a period of time. There was a bid closing, and then that bid had to stand for 24 hours. And so after that 24-hour period, within that 24-hour period, somebody else could bid on that, I believe, at a set increment. I think so it wasn't just $1, go $1 more. It was a set increment, but they had discussed that with me, and I thought I would bring that forward to see if that was something that we as a commission would like to entertain. I understand that it's an ordinance, but it's our ordinance. It's not coming from the state.
I love the idea. I do. And that's generally the way all federal bidding works. Everything to providing trailers to selling real estate in the federal government's online is just the way they do that. The problem that we have is we don't have a statutory system for selling alcohol licenses in that particular way. So not only would it require a change to our ordinance, but we would be venturing out on a limb, being the only municipality trying to issue a license in a new way without a statutory support system for that. And as a general rule, good ideas are best tested by others sometimes, given what we have as the backdrop called Dillon's Rule, which is a statutory limitation that says municipalities only have the power that's given to them by state law. So if there isn't a clear statute giving us the authority or some implied right coming from that authority, technically we don't have the authority. And I love a good idea as long as it was somebody else's first and they're doing it. If there isn't clear authority. I have less heartburn of being one of 8 cities doing something in South Dakota that isn't clearly defined by statute, as long as we're like, number 8.
And with the sealed bid, do we have clear from the state? Do we have clear?
No. For the issuance of these alcohol licenses, we just have the framework for issuance of alcohol licenses, period. And that talks about issuing through the hearing process, fit applicant, fit location criteria, which is not very structured. And that was the primary reason we liked Sioux Falls method, because they've been doing it a long time. The South Dakota Department of Revenue is okay with that process. There's no pushback from the state, if you will. So it seemed like a safe way to get competition built into this process. Plus, from a practical standpoint, what you would lose with an online bidding process is a way for staff to vet the bids, because we still have to do the bid opening and make sure each of the bidders meet both the ordinance criteria and the statutory criteria for the issuance of that license. And we'd have difficulty in terms of selecting the high bidder, and what if they didn't qualify? How do we roll back to the next highest bidder? It just creates quite a bit of uncertainty using that particular procedure.
Well, I would think that it would just go back to the previous bidder, just like Sioux Falls at 100,000, that falls through, so then it goes back to the bidder who bid 15,000.
In the sealed bid process that they use, that we also use, yes. Yeah, but if you moved online, I don't know how that would exactly work. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand. So the reason that we're using the system that we are is because not because it's backed by the state, but because there's precedents in other communities that haven't gotten in trouble over this?
That's right.
Is that basically what it comes down to?
Tested by others, yes.
So at the last meeting, we asked Lisa to prepare this information because we didn't really state at that time what direction we wanted to go with this. Is there any strong feelings from the commissioners of approving or moving in a certain direction with how much, if we were to approve, how much the bid should be, or how we should structure that, a higher minimum than the state minimum? I mean, any thoughts from the commissioners here?
I would say, I mean, if Mitchell just had a bid awarded for $51,000, and I realize that we were at 50 and got 0 bids. One of the things, though, I think we need to look at is I really think there needs to be a substantial minimum. Again, maybe we've halved it twice now, maybe we half it again. I just think that, I think it's our job to try and get as much as we can for something that doesn't come around very often, especially here. In fact, Lisa, we said, when was the last, it took us how long to get this next one?
I believe since the 1980s.
So quite a while. Now, I do also believe in getting this out into the hands of people that can use it. I think that's important too. But I also think that we have something that that does have value, and that I think we should set a substantial minimum for, or at least a reasonable minimum for, not $300, in my opinion.
Well, Mike, I think there's in a community like T or Harrisburg or Sioux Falls that are growing so fast, there's less of a scarcity multiplier on the license, as you indicated. Mitchell, much like Yankton, would be in a similar boat where we're not growing nearly as fast. But if we did set it, say, at 25,000, as you suggested, we would still be within the realm of what a market value for these have gone. So I feel comfortable with that. I don't know how the other commissioners feel.
I'm good with setting that 25,000. I would make a motion to set that as a minimum bid requirement. with everything else staying the same.
I would second that.
So we have a motion, a second on setting a minimum bid requirement. Ross?
And the amount, the non-refundable application fee. Yep.
Before we actually fully vote on this, we need to also set the non-refundable application fee amount and the date at which we would open the bids. Lisa, in the past, or in your recommendation, what's a common time period for a sealed bid timeframe?
So on the memorandum 2551 attached, there are 4 different options. So right away, we would publish a legal notice on March 14th. Then within there, we have to do 2 public notices before the bid, not less than 10 days before the bid opening. So you can see on the 3rd line, there's public bid opening set for April 10th, April 24th, May 8th, or May 15th. And then with that, we do have to, after that, we do have to do background checks, investigate the suitable location, bring that before the commission to award the bid to the highest bidder, and set the date for the public hearing. And that's where we get into the normal alcohol issuance procedures. We have to have 2 commission meetings. And then that leaves the second public hearing for May 12th, May 27th, June 9th, or June 9th respectively. And that can be altered. That's just kind of a general guideline that meets within staff, because bear in mind, we do have to have permission for Dave's department, police department, and also the fire department has to do their due diligence as well.
And did that memorandum, I apologize, did that memorandum state your recommendation on an application fee? Thank you. My iPad was not working.
The application fee did not have a recommendation. We have done $100 non-refundable at the last 2 go-arounds, and I believe at the last commission meeting, commission expressed to keep that fee. That would help one, make sure the bidder is serious, and 2, help cover staff time for processing that.
Okay, just to recap then, one option that we could approve would be a $25,000 minimum bid with a sealed bid opening of May 15th with a $100 non-refundable application fee. That would push it out to based on the chart you gave us, the timeline you gave us, the greatest amount of time for people to submit a sealed bid. Is there anyone from the commission who would like to make that motion? Does that satisfy all the requirements?
It would.
Thank you.
So would I need to modify the one that
We have one of the 4, I'm sorry, that's right, we have a motion second. So Dave, would you mind amending your motion to add the sealed bid opening of May 15th and the $100 non-refundable application fee?
Is that option 4?
Yes.
Okay, I will amend it to set the minimum at $100 for the fee and go with option 4 on those timelines.
And just to clarify, a non-refundable fee.
Non-refundable,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on that from the commission?
Does that motion specify that $100 is the renewal fee?
That's the non-refundable application fee. The application, yep. And the renewal fee, just for our clarification, is set by ordinance?
That's
By
correct.
statute, okay, thank you.
That's $500, and that renews on a calendar year, January 1st. So that's something that will be brought before you next November for renewing.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Anyone from the public?
I've got one quick thing. I just want to reiterate, because I've had this question from a number of people. This is a package off-sale liquor license. I've had questions about, is this a liquor license? What is this? It's a package off-sale liquor license.
Correct. You can go to the store, buy a pack of liquor, and take it home. You cannot drink it on the premises. Correct?
That is correct. It's a liquor store style license. Yeah, one point of clarification, I'm not sure it has any impact whatsoever, but it was a question by Commissioner, I think it was Ben's question last time. And I looked up the answer and I wanted to share it with all of you before you vote. The question was, how long can the person who receives the winning bid have until they open? And by statute, it is not addressed, but by our ordinance, in our procedures, we require that it be utilized within 120 days of the issuance of that license by the state. So it's not a real long period of time, so that might support your decision to use the longest deadline that you have, so the applicants have time to get their proverbial ducks in a row with their financing or whatever their business plan is to get going.
Thank you, Ross. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Roll call, please.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hanoff,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunick,
Aye.
Mayor Schramm.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion and all the information you pulled, Lisa and Ross. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Item number 1 is consideration of memorandum 25-55, which is recommending that the City Commission approve Resolution 25-12, authorizing the city manager to execute the quitclaim deed, conveying any reversionary interest held by the City of Yankton in a vacated Mulberry Street right-of-way to the Yankton School District. Before we get into this, Dave, do you have any, just want to add a little detail so people understand where this is and why?
Sure. Ross did a really good job in the memo describing what we're accomplishing with this consideration of this action. This is the old Mulberry Street right-of-way that's just to the east of the Webster School buildings. Essentially, it sits between the buildings and the playground. It's functions as a parking lot for teacher parking at this point in time. There was, when the right-of-way vacation occurred in 1981, the commission's action included a reversionary clause whereby if the school district ceased to use the property, the city would have the right to, well, it would essentially revert back to the city's right-of-way at that point in time. Ross did some research. Community development has looked into this issue extensively also. First of all, we don't even know if that type of reversion would be supported in any state law or code we have on the books right now. And through more research, determined that the easiest way to resolve this for the school district, since we have no potential future use of that right-of-way corridor whatsoever, would be just to quitclaim any interest the city has in that property over to the school district so they can continue on with their consideration of liquidating the property.
And so this came up in our media briefing, but the southern point of that easement would end kind of halfway in between basically halfway to the creek, not all the way to Nybrick's property.
Yeah, in the middle of the creek, basically, is what would be adjacent to the school district property is what this action would apply to.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Can I have the commission entertain a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion about this action? Okay, anyone from the public? Okay, roll call.
Hanoff,
Aye.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunick,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Mayor Schramm.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item number 2 is consideration of memorandum 25-46, recommending that the city commission award the annual supply liquid asphalt bid to Jebro Inc. of Sioux City, Iowa at $678.87 per ton. That's for the AC grade asphalt, MC 70 asphalt at $4.65 and some additional rounding change per gallon, and RC 800 for $3.89 and some change. What is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone from the public? Roll call.
Villanueva,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Brunick,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hanoff,
Aye.
Mayor Schramm.
Aye, motion carries. Item 3 is consideration of memorandum 25-47, recommending the city commission authorize the annual supply of bituminous, did I say that right this time? Gosh, every time. Bituminous mix, I even asked for it before the meeting, be awarded to Knife River, South Dakota of Sioux Falls, at the price of $88 per ton. What is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone from the public? Roll call.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item number 4 is consideration of memorandum 25-49 regarding resolution 25-10, which is a plat of a tract west of, let's see, on the west of side of 3400 block of West City Limits Road. Steve Slowey is the owner. Dave, if I remember right from our media briefing, this is essentially a non-usable piece of property that has no real easements running through it. That's kind of right around the railroad tracks.
Yeah, it'll have some future market value for the owner. It's a piece of property that's substantially industrial in nature in our ETJ. All of the easements that were previously applied to it for BY Water and other ingress egress are carried forward and included in this plat. The only reason this could not be an administrative plat and signed off at the staff level is because it was not a previously platted or planned tract. It was described by meets and bounds. So that's why you're seeing it here today. There's nothing unusual or unique or controversial, in my opinion anyway, to consider with the plat. Staff and the Planning Commission have recommended approval.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commissioners? Okay, anyone from the public? Roll call.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff. Villanueva.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye, motion carries. Item 5 is consideration of memorandum 25-53, recommending that the city commission approve an on-sale malt beverage retailer's license for 3 days, happens to be Riverboat Days. What is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commission? Anyone from the public? Roll call.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Abstaining affiliation.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye. Do we have enough to carry the motion? Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to item 6 is consideration of memorandum 25-54, recommending that the city commission award the Karen Drive, Bradley Street, and Valley Road water main replacement contract to Fimer Construction in the amount of $788,877. What is the pleasure of the commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the commission? Okay, Dave, I think if I remember right, you mentioned that we had some good competitive bids on this one, which was nice.
Yeah, and I hadn't talked about this with Adam, but just looking at the bids, there were a number of them that were fairly close together, which seems to be a little bit unusual from what we've seen in recent larger items like this, and it's good to see.
Awesome. Okay, roll call.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye, motion carries. Item 7 is consideration of memorandum 25-56, recommending the city commission approve the municipal election board compensation be set at $200 for the superintendents and $180 for the deputies and $60 for the absentee ballot counters. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve those rates.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? Anyone from the public? Roll call.
Hanoff.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunick.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Mayor Schram.
Aye, motion carries. That concludes our new business section. Moving on to the future business. Is any items from a commission that would like to bring up at this time? Seeing no mics, we still have a little bit of daylight. I'll ask for all those in favor of, excuse me, I have to ask this again. I just want to get on. Can I have a motion to end the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of ending the meeting, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.